Welcome to Life Empowered once again. And today I have the one of probably a greatest honor is to have a conversation with my old youth pastor. Oh, crap. And now I'm going to get a little emotional because I am been tired. So that leans to be more emotional. Is who him and Christine, his wife, were probably the only two people. Oh, I hate this. In my life during my high school years that were encouraging to me. There was no other encouragement or support in my life but them. So again, I'll be over this now, but now you know how much I love Steve-O and Christine and how much I appreciate them. But he has so much to share on his journey through life as being a youth ministry, youth pastor, youth evangelist, etc. It is not an easy journey. And so we're going to touch on a little bit of that with him today. So thank you so much, Steve-O, for being with me today on Life Empowered.
Oh man, it is my honor. Thank you for saying all that. But honestly, Krista, you make it sound like we planned to do that. You were just easy to love. You were just easy. You were easy to encourage. You were just one of our favorites, man. I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but Krista, you just made our heart. You made our heart happy every time you came around. And I know you also went through a lot of stuff when you were younger. You did a good job of also hiding a lot of stuff went through with us, but we knew that you struggled, but yet, I don't know, there was just something about you that was just, you won Christina, you won our hearts like immediately. And I am so very proud of you for what you're doing now, for standing up and doing something when a lot of people think, yeah, something should be done, but you're actually doing it. And this isn't easy what you're doing either. So I'm honored. Thanks for bringing me on your podcast.
Well, thank you very much. Maybe it was easy because I was so desperate for the love. But anyhow, thank you so much. So Steve-O, tell us a little bit about a struggle or like what we talked about before. Just get us into where you're coming from.
This is kind of tough because it's not like something concrete, like you made it through cancer or you were abused or you struggle with anxiety or anything like that. This is more ethereal. It's more, I don't know. So you know me, the best way I know how to do anything is to just is to just start
Talk.
talking and it comes out. And that's I think I process outward. I process outwardly. I have to talk to think. And I know that freaks a lot of people out, including Christine when we first got married, but you knew all that stuff anyway. But anyway, um, we read the stories in the Bible, and they're tremendous stories. I mean, you could write children's books on these stories. You could write regular books, and they have been written on these stories, right? But we read them like they're a Sunday school story. But when Jonah was being swallowed by a large fish, that was not a Sunday school story. It wasn't a flannel graph. It wasn't a cute little illustration for someone to wear his cool looking clothes and stand in front of, hundreds of people and tell them about. I mean, it wasn't some slick little story. It was a real story that was scary. When you read about Abraham, you read about Ruth, you read about Mary, right? If you really read the Bible and get behind the skin of it and start putting yourself in the human's perspective, it was scary. And when God calls you to do something, I know you know this is true, so feel free to jump in if you want, but when God calls you to do something, it's scary. I mean, you end up thinking that oh, God's gonna make me rich and fat and prosperous, and He's gonna take care of me because all I have to do is just do what He tells me to do. But man, I don't know if it's life or if it's God or if it's what, but struggle is a whole part of the thing. So to try to put it up in a nutshell, God called us to travel and to go where He calls us to go. We don't get a salary from anywhere. There's no place that covers our income. We go where God tells us to go, and God provides for us, like He did with a lot of people in the Bible. He provides for us by honorariums when I speak somewhere, but that's never enough. The places I speak at are usually, they're not the big old churches, or sometimes there are, but that pay a huge amounts to come and speak. And I don't charge like a lot of people that do what I do. I don't charge a minimum. I'm not going to charge a minimum. I'm going to share Jesus wherever he calls me to share him. I'm going to say whatever he wants me to say, however he wants me to say it, wherever he wants me to say it. But when you live on faith like that, it gets difficult. And when the money doesn't seem to come in, or you just bust your behind, man, speaking countless times for one place, and they give you enough to buy gas and a burger on your way out of town, and you're like, how am I supposed to survive on that? So I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's a start. So feel free to ask more if you
I
want.
think all of us should be able to relate to that on some level. Of course, it's definitely more extreme or more constant when it's your life ministry, your life career and what you do. But even just living the life of a Christian obviously is going to have that struggle, but yours, it's so much more accentuated by the way that you live your life and where you've been called and how to live. And I find often, and what I hear so often too, is we always want to know the outcome. Again, first we want control. We want to plan it out. We want to understand.
Yep.
We want to be comfortable and like, yeah, that's what I want. And like our plans and our goals are like, yeah, we work it out. We even begin to see maybe what God's doing and go, oh, we work out the rest of the plan. And then it doesn't go that way in that plan because that's not what God had planned. That's just how we worked it out in our head.
Right.
That makes that constant struggle. And God did call us to a life of submission, a life of trusting him. And so being it's your everyday expenses, your everyday livelihood, he's telling you, I need you to trust me all the time, every moment, not just for this choice and this step. That's where I've been sitting and trying to pound into my head to stop thinking things are going to go the way I plan it because they never do. I'm supposed to make plans. I'm supposed to, look ahead and use wisdom, and I do. It's just I have to be really good with that. There's going to always be so many adjustments, and I have I call it I think a benefit that one of my top gifts is adaptability. So I've got that going for me, unlike other people. But even with that, it's frustrating. It's
really is
disappointing, right? Because so the hardest part is when you're in that, you're taking these steps and you're trusting him. And when it doesn't go the way you had hoped, the way you had wished, the way you had dreamed, you have to deal with that real live emotion of disappointment. Disappointment in your wishes, not disappointment really in God, but really disappointment of like, oh, that's not what I thought was going to happen. And that's hard. And our emotions are real. You know what? I see more often than not, our emotions are a problem, and I just don't understand it. I said, it's always my emotions that are causing me the most grief. And yet, we're made in God's image, right? So all these things, he has these emotions, but he's perfect. So he can have all these emotions and still make these right choices and right processes. And well, again, he didn't give us the perfection. So it's like, well, then my emotions are screwing things up all the time. I am most angry at these emotions that confuse my logic and my plans. So that's my style of that.
Well, yeah, God in heaven is perfect, and Jesus was perfect too. But Jesus, if he makes a wrong choice, he's no longer perfect, right? And so the pressure's even higher on him, right? So the time when he curses the fig tree, he was ticked off. I'm sorry. He was ticked off and he cursed the fig tree. The fig tree wasn't even in bloom at that time. And he's mad at it because he was hungry and wanted something to eat. And there's no figs on the fig tree. And I think he was just fed up, man, dealing with people all the time. And, but he had to make choices to, emotions aren't bad. Emotions are simply our body trying to tell us something is up, trying to tell us, pay attention. There's something going on here. Depression is simply saying, wait a minute, something's out of balance. Let's rest. Let's figure this out. Anxiety is saying, wait a minute, you're trusting in the wrong thing, or why are you feeling this way? And so emotions, they get in the way, but they're also what make life so great. In fact, God tells us to be angry. He says, be angry. It's like one of the 10 commandments. It's not one of the 10 commandments, but it's like it when he says, be ye angry. exclamation point, but don't sin in your anger. Don't let the sun set on your wrath, but get angry. But we tend to hold it all in and say, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. Then why are the veins in your neck popping out? Why are you yelling at all the traffic on the road because you lost 2 seconds of your life? They cut in front of you. Why in the world? Because we're angry, but we need to admit we're angry. We need to admit our emotions
Yes.
and let them guide us, with truth to where we need to go. But honestly, Krista, you're bigger than I am, and that's not a fat joke. You should never tell a woman she's bigger than you. So I mistake. I pulled a Steve-O right there. But you're bigger than I am in the whole fact of no. I'll just be honest with you. I get mad at God. I get disappointed with God, and I think God's okay with that.
Mhm.
God, he knows what's in my head. He knows how I'm feeling in my heart, right? And I remember the time I just finally decided to believe, God, you said you wanted to be my friend. Well, if my friend treated me like this, I'd be mad at them. And I get in the car, I roll up the windows, and I talk to them. Sometimes I yell at them. Sometimes I just get flat out angry with them. But every time I do, after that's all been vented, this peace comes on me. And I go, wait a minute, God, I'm sorry. I know that you're in control. And that's really the book of Psalms. That was what David did with them. And my biggest frustration is I get disappointed. They always say, well, you don't have it because you don't have the faith. I have the faith to know that God can. I believe that he can. And then when he doesn't, I go, it reminds me a little bit of, because God does so much for us, right? But I remember at one point I realized I got to start paying better attention to my wife. Um, I just come home and I don't clean out the dishwasher. I travel all the time. And I started saying, you know what? My wife likes a clean dishwasher. So I started cleaning the dishwasher out. I started doing this stuff. I started saying, when I come home, I want to, because I travel half the year, basically. I used to anyway. And when I come home, I wanted to make things easier for her and do some things that she was doing double time on, right? I'm not saying I was the best at it, but I really tried hard to do that. And I remember one day she came up to me and she says, I don't want to complain. She says, I appreciate you cleaning out the dishwasher and putting the dishes away and so on and so forth. She says, but could you at least wipe out the sink when you're done? And I'm like, babe, for real? Like, I do all that work and you're concerned about me wiping out the sink, but I get it now, right? Sometimes I'm with God. I'm saying, you want the job finished, right? And there's sometimes God does all this stuff for you, but you're like, I'm like, God, can you at least just finish the job? I mean, I need you to meet my needs, but I don't need 80% met. I don't need 95% met. I need 100% met. That you go this far, and then I just don't. I don't get him, but it's okay to not get him because the Bible says that his ways are bigger than our ways. His thoughts aren't like our thoughts. They're higher than our thoughts. And that's where trust and faith comes in. And if there's no struggle, I don't think there can be trust. And without faith, it's impossible to please God. So what pleases God? Faith. And all the problem is, if you flip that coin, there's a solution on the other side. So I can either focus on the problem or I can focus on what's the solution, right? I can either focus on, you can't have victory unless you have a battle. You can't win unless you have a struggle. So all that struggle it's the other side of the coin of God's on his way. God's going to do something. And life is just full of struggle. And when you follow God, it doesn't go away. Sometimes it gets more intense because God wants to teach us how to trust him. And that can be difficult.
And I think it's constant. And even that verse where you said, his ways are not my ways, and reminding that I am not perfect, and I know he is a just God. I can study the Bible and I can see examples and over of his faithfulness and his goodness. But we can look at stories or books of like Jeremiah, his journey. I look at that and I've studied Jeremiah so many times. It's crushing. It's crushing to read
Right.
Jeremiah's story because I can't imagine how alone he felt. I can't imagine how crushed he felt because he didn't really get to see the fruits. He just kept doing obedient to God and not seeing it. Now, again, it doesn't tell us every detail of his life. It doesn't tell us all the ways that God met him and sustained him. But we do see that his ministry, his job was he did it over and over, and yet just beat back, and beat down and ignored constantly. And I look at that and go, okay, well, at least I'm not Jeremiah. We can always find someone's story that's harder than ours. I mean, we can be in the moment in our emotions and we can be beat down and go, I don't understand. I don't, where are you? Why aren't you doing this? And we have every right to be disappointed. We have every right to be sad
There you go.
because we don't have certain things or we're
There
not
you go.
seeing the work of God at that moment. We can be sad. We can
It's
be
okay. Yeah.
confused.
Yeah.
But then again,
Yeah.
what you said is it's a choice. We have to choose to, who is God? Do we believe it? Do, because all he cares is that we trust him and we're obedient to him. Because if we know that he's real, if we can choose to believe he's real, then we can keep taking those steps forward even when we don't see the action. And for me, like even with working with women that have been exploited, that have been sold, used as a product. Okay, I've never been there. I have experienced a lot of crap, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, but never have I experienced that. Never has it been that bad. And so for me, that is a constant encouragement to me in being able to try to build support, to gather support, to open a home, to rebuild their lives, to love on them, to point them to Jesus, because I, that they're alive and breathing is awesome to me. When they can smile, an authentic smile is awesome to me. When they take one step in the right direction of truth and for themselves and for who they are, I'm in awe. And so I always can remind myself of those stories right in front of me. What are we going to choose when we feel like this? Like you said, looking at the situation. Why am I feeling this way? Should I feel this way? Okay, do I need to sit in this or do I need to get rid of it and lay my burdens on God? He tells us to lay our burdens on him. So even when we're hurting and we're broken, in that struggle that he's allowing, or he's not showing up like we want or when we want, will we throw it back on him and say, God, I need you to carry this. I need you to take care of it because I can't. There's not, I can't fix it. I can't make it go away. I need you to hold it. And I need to let go so I can walk in that peace. That's when they talk, that's one of those spots where they talk about a peace that passes all understanding, meaning
Yeah.
it makes no sense that you can be at peace if you're in the middle of hell and yet you can be at peace. I love those stories and hearing of others. But again, it's a choice. It's not just some magic or some rainbows or naive or pretending things are okay. It's a choice of, will I trust him? Will I lean on him? Will I believe again that he is still faithful, even though he's not answering me now or the way I want?
How is it really even true belief? If everything is going the way we want, how's there belief there unless there's doubt? There can't be belief unless there's doubt. And like there can't be light unless there's dark. There can't be hope unless there's despair. You can't know
Right.
what tall is unless you know what short is, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because we call this thing believing in God, we call it a walk of what?
Of faith.
Faith,
Mhm.
right? But this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. We
Mhm.
think that a walk of faith means those people, they got to figure it out. They never doubt anymore. They know better. No, they wake up with doubt every day. What did it say about Jesus? It said he was a man who was familiar with sorrow and acquainted with grief. He
Mhm.
knew sorrow and he was friends with grief. Jesus, the Son of God, knew what sorrow was and he knew what grief was. And I would also say this. I mean, you dropped so many wisdom nuggets right there, Krista. I mean, there's so much that you just dropped right there. Um, Boy, so many things we could talk about on what you just said. Um, but this is what faith looks like. And you said you don't know what Jeremiah felt like. I would argue that. I think you do, Krista. I think that you do. And you say that you don't know what it feels like for these women that you're helping out, but I think that you do. I think that you do. And we love to quantify. I'm so proud of you. We love to quantify struggle and pain and say their pain is worse than mine. Let me say this: pain is pain is pain is pain.
I do say that
And
all the time.
you know, well, there you
When I
go.
do
And
my
in Jesus,
trainings with our volunteers, I explain it as this: we won't know the extreme of their pain, but we all have experienced loneliness. We've all experienced abandonment, rejection, being unloved in
yeah,
some way. Some of us experience more of things than others, but that feeling is the same because we're all human. God made us all human. It doesn't matter what year, what country we live in, what culture, what race we are all human, and we all suffer those same things, but on varying levels and in different experiences. So I do say it all the time.
You know, when God made humans originally, right? And then he kept saying it is good, it is good, everything he made is good. He made human and he said it's not good. When he made Adam, it was the only time he said it's not good, but he finished his sentence with for Adam to be alone. So then God even provided a helper, a friend, right? I think we as humans, we're supposed to be helpmates to people, right? And it's not just talking about man and woman there or husband and wife. It's talking about we're supposed to be helpmates. It's not good for us to be alone. But I'm not sure there was any struggle there in the beginning. It was when they chose to allow sin into the life. They made that choice. Sin shows up and we blame God for sin, right? But here's the crazy part, Krista. You know, in Hebrews, I think it's chapter 12, right? Where the Bible says that we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. What does that mean? Well, if you read the chapter before, it starts to talk about all these greats, like people in the Bible that we've read about, all the Moseses and the Abrahams and the Pauls and all these people, it's listing their story and their struggle. Their story wouldn't be a story if there wasn't a struggle. How they were fed to the lions, how they went through all the stuff that they went through, how all the heroes that you rescue all the time with Redeem and Restore. They're heroes is what they are. They don't know it, but they are, okay? Hero is simply someone who does the right thing at the right time for the right reason. And they're women who are trying to get there, and even men who are trying to get their life back together, right? But after it talks in the Bible, all these people and all the struggles that they went through and they made it, right? Then the next chapter, it starts out, says that we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. We're surrounded by those people. And witnesses, what do? They watch people. And I see them up in the stands. Oh, Krista, you're going to have a hard time believing this, but I believe it 100% for you. Okay. But they're up in the stands and I can see Jeremiah. I can flip this. I can see Jeremiah up in the stands going, I don't know how Krista does it. I mean, I went through this and this, but what Krista does, man, God, how in the world does Krista do that all the time? I know it's like to feel lonely, but look at her, and I think the witnesses look back at us and go, they don't realize, but their pain is just as deep as my pain. Their struggle is just as deep as my struggle.
Yeah. Again, we all feel those same things. It's just different circumstances.
Yep, they are.
Different
And we got to
situations.
stop saying that your pain is bigger than mine or my pain is bigger than your. Stop measuring it and let's just all hug each other, right? Let's all verbally hug each other. Let's all, start encouraging one another. The word encourage is an old French word that means to pour courage into somebody. And that's what you do every day. You know what struggle is. I can't imagine the struggles that you go through in working with women and setting them free from tyrannical, ugly, man. Sometime I'd like to just sit down. I can't wait to see you face to face again and hang out with you and Jason and just sit and start picking your brain on tell me the stories. Because you could write a Hebrews 11 yourself. You could tell me story after story after story of these women, these men who went through abuse and got out and now are helping other people. I mean,
Those are the best, beautiful, most beautiful, gorgeous stories ever. And seeing them find complete freedom, not just a little freedom, but again, their life is still a journey. It is still a struggle. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Just because someone's been through hell doesn't give them a free pass. It's just not how it works. It is the same no matter, if you were brought up in a great loving family or you had nothing, the journey is the same. We have to figure out stuff. He does do miracles. God does do healing. He does provide amazing blessings at times, but most of it has to be learned because we can't learn without going through the struggle.
Right. And you
And
said it
so
right there. It's something that we have to figure out. That's the other side of that coin. Instead of just looking at the struggle, wait, we get to figure something out right now. We get with God, God will give us his mind. He'll give us his heart. And with him, hand in hand with us, he will help us figure out the problem. It's just like a game of Wordle. It's just like doing a puzzle. It's just like playing a game of strategy. It's just like life. It's this problem is nothing more. This struggle is nothing more than something we get to overcome, something that we get to figure out. But when we do it alone, that's why it's not good. That's why God said it's not good for humans to be alone. I'll make them a helpmate. When we do it alone, we just can't do it. But when we do it with somebody else, when Redeem and Restore shows up in somebody's life, when Krista shows up in somebody's life, it gives hope, right? It gives peace. And that's why I keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, what else am I going to do? You know, we talk about God being the rock. I tell God a lot of times, I'm like, God, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. And you know how he replied to me? He was like, yeah, I know. I know. That's a good place to be. When he's the rock, you want to be stuck between that and a hard place. You want the rock right there beside you when you're in a hard place. And I'm not going to do anything other than what God wants me to do. Because if I think it's hard now, if I think struggle is hard now, the Bible says that the way of the sinner is really hard, right? And at least now I'm under the covering of doing what God wants me to do. And it's tough. But if I decide to say, forget you, God, I'm done, man. I'm done. I'm going to go do my own thing.
Which is
That's when
good.
life really gets hard.
Yeah. And you know, and I've been there too, of being trying to, again, make my plans, figure out what I'm supposed to do, but not consulting him, just figuring it out. And so most of my life, it was figuring it out. What do I need to do? And it's Krista all by herself. She's going to figure it out, independent, driven. And that can get me so far in certain places, but it also added, of course, to my deep loneliness and that connection that I wasn't getting with people. And again, how he works, it's never in a million years would I ever have imagined I'd be doing what I do, or even running a nonprofit. It was never a thought and never an idea. But the fact that he led me to do this wasn't just for those that were going after. It was so much for me. So much, especially I feel like it's been a very slow journey, and I know I could say it's all my fault, or it was just, again, this was my journey. It was part of that process. I had so much to learn, and so
Right.
I'm thankful for what I get to learn, and I'm also being thankful and expectant of how God's going to work through this current struggle. How is he going to work? I mean, I know what I want him to do, but I have to be okay that if he doesn't do it that way, that I have to sit in this struggle with the board longer.
Does it ever feel
or
to you
process.
like, does it, do you ever just wish God to get a little bit more urgent with your request? I mean,
To be
we sit there going,
fast.
God, I need an
Fast.
answer now. And yet God doesn't seem to have the same urgency sometimes that we have, because God knows he's going to do it. He's already been in our future. He's in our future right now. When he says, I've met that need, he's where that need is being met. He's like, I just need you to trust me because love is patient. But we're like, God, I feel like I'm more urgent sometimes than God is. And God's like, because I know the timing of everything. And I just need you to trust me, you know, but
And I think
he
that's where
doesn't
a
seem,
lot of it is, in that waiting, in that uncomfortable,
yeah.
that like in the rock and the hard place, in the in between, and waiting to see, okay, how will you do it? And will you be okay with how he does it? God is leading this ministry, not me. He has put me in this position for a time, but it's not mine. It wasn't my idea. It wasn't my plan. I can't
Yep.
make it happen, but this is where he has me. And so will I trust him that he is? And the other part, does he need me? Does he need you?
Mm,
No.
mm.
He can do everything he wants all on his own. He's created us. He's created this world. So he does not need me to accomplish the goals of Redeem and Restore. He does not need our board to accomplish the goals of Redeem and Restore, the mission that he has laid out to love, restore, and support women's lives. That's his. So then I have to make my plans. I have to do my thing, but then I have to go, okay, if I don't see these results, or he's not answering me, or I'm not seeing it the way I want, I have to choose again.
Yeah.
Okay, who's in charge? Who's doing his thing? Whose purpose is this? Whose plan is this? And making sure that I'm not making it take longer. That's my prayer. Lord, help me to hear your voice, because I don't want to make it take any longer than it needs to be. I want to do what I'm supposed to do and then leave the rest to you.
Right. And in Psalms 139, you know, he says that I have ordained your days. I have laid out your, I think he says in Jeremiah too, but I have laid out your days. In other words, I've got a plan. All you have to do is do what I tell you to do. I'm running the ship. You just man the oar. You just swab the deck. You just do whatever. I've already got it taken care of. And coming full circle again, when we start getting anxious, we start going, God, what is going on? It's our emotions trying to tell us, wait a minute, where have I given up? Where have I taken control back? Why am I anxious? Where am I not trusting God anymore? Because this is his thing. It's not mine. So the pressure is off of me. So why am I and your emotions are trying to be friends with you at that point. So go, wait a minute, pay attention. you're not, you're not trusting him anymore.
Mhm.
And that's when we can get ourselves, right back in line again.
In this discussion, in things we've highlighted in a few parts, but what would you say? So you've told us what you do when you're angry at God and how you get through that. But in general, overall, what you found that works when you're going through this struggle or this angst where you're like, yeah, didn't answer how I thought or what I thought we needed right now. What is your process in moving through that and making those right choices to keep moving forward?
That's a great question. You said at the beginning of the podcast about how, you're tired and so you're going to be more emotional. And so when I'm struggling because I'm tired or I'm weary, then I have to fix that. I have to we have a spiritual tank, physical tank, and an emotional tank, right? A mental tank. And we've got to do things. So sometimes I got to do brainless stuff because my brain never stops working. Sometimes I gotta watch funny movies. I got to go play. I find people in my life that I'm honest and vulnerable with. We have got to be honest and vulnerable. That's what makes intimacy work. That's how we can have a helpmate. But the whole idea of you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, that was a tongue-in-cheek statement. They were making fun of that. You cannot pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, but we've flipped it around and now we make it like you got to pull yourself. You can't. You can't. So I find people in my life, I've got a handful of people in my life that have proven themselves because I've given them a little chunk and they didn't do me wrong. I opened up to them. I said, here's how I'm feeling. And they didn't make fun of me. They didn't spread it to everybody. So then I opened up more. And now I've given them all this junk of me and they still love me and they're still there. So now when I struggle, there's a couple things I do. I watch inspirational things or listen to motivational, we talk about garbage in, garbage out, computer term. Whatever you put in your computer is what it's sort of turned to us. Like if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. If you junk food, your body's going to pay a price for it, right? But I change it to hi-ho instead of GIGO, happy in, happy out, right? And so instead of cursing the darkness, I'm just going to turn the light on. Instead of doing the struggle, I'm going to do the opposite of what I feel that struggle is. So I've got to feed my mind, my spirit with happy. God talks about the joy of the Lord is my strength. So I watch inspirational stuff. I watch funny stuff. I listen to funny stuff. I try to feed my brain the opposite of what I'm feeling. And it's so easy to do these days with a thing called internet, man. But I find things that I can put in me, right? And that can be from the internet. It can be from other people. It can be from the word, from the Bible. When I read the Bible, I put myself in there and I ask God before I even open it up. I either just say, where do you want? And I just open up and start reading, or I'll say, okay, God, where do you want me to go today? And whatever portion comes to my mind, I just follow that and I read and I say, God, where do I fit in this? I go on movies with God all the time. We'll go on dates all the time, just me and Jesus. I look like some loner dude, right? But I don't care. I'll go on a date. I'm like, God, where do you want to go eat? We say he's our friend, but we never ask him questions like that. We never say, God, tell me a joke. One of my biggest keys are, I say, God, what do you think about the situation? Or what do you think about me right now? And when he tells me either one of those two things, it covers it for me, so just to oversimplify it, I'd say, I read the Bible. I fill myself with inspirational, funny things, and I hang out with people that are good for me. I share, I get vulnerable with them. And sometimes I just laugh with them. And then I ask God, what do you think about this situation? Because I'm scared as all get out. I am so scared. I'm scared spineless right now. I don't know what to do, or I'm anxious, or God, I'm angry and I'm angry at you and I'm disappointed. And God, why don't you don't seem to care, right? And I ask God, but then I shut up because we made prayer talking at God instead of hanging out with him. I wish we could remove that word prayer from our brains and put hang out instead, because I think it would change how we communicate with God. But when you hang out with him, he is peace. The Bible says that put on the mind of Christ. I can have the mind of Christ. So I want to find out what his mind says. God, what do you think about my situation? And sometimes when I'm having a hard time hearing him because I'm worn out or I'm beat up, I talk to someone else and say, here's what I'm going through. What do you think? Because you know what, Krista, it's way easy for me to brag on you and tell you how great you are, but I'm not very good at doing it about myself. And I need to become better at doing it about myself because I am important. God made me. And could God do it without me? Yes. But could God do it without me? No. Krista, he gave me my skills and my weaknesses and he put them together. And then he placed me in this certain particular part of earth because he knew that neighbor that barista, that grocery store clerk, I was going to come across them, and he needs me to be me because God chooses to use people. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have made us. He could have made the earth and had the angels and the beast bow down to him like it talks about in Revelation, but he made us because we're special. He formed us. He spoke the world into existence. He formed us. So God could do it without me, but God chooses not to do it without me because I
Right.
am valuable. We are all valuable. We all have something to offer. God didn't joke around when he made us, man. He
Yeah.
made us. He formed us before he knew us, before he even formed us. And he went into our mother's belly and he made us by hand. And so I think if we can just remind ourselves of that, and that's what my friends do, they remind me, wait a minute, Steve, this isn't in your hands. This is God's. You gave it to God. Why are you anxious? Why are you upset, God? And struggle is, I just want to say to everyone listening, struggle is okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. You don't have to know the answers. You don't have to know them. You don't have to know the answers. It's okay. God has laid out your days. You can trust him. And if you can't trust him, my favorite prayer in the Bible is the man who said, God said, do you believe me? And he says, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. And so when I'm having a trouble, God, I'm angry, I'm hurt by you, I'm disappointed, I don't get it. Help my unbelief. I want to believe you more. I know that was a way longer answer than you're probably looking for, but Steve
No,
O'Wordo here. I love words, but I'm a talker. Like that's how God made me to be. But we got to stop looking at certain personalities because they get famous or they have a bigger name or they have a bigger platform and saying they're more important. They're not. They're
right.
not more important. When we get up into heaven and we have all these piles of treasure that we've won for the things we did on earth, and we get to give it to God at the end and say, God, here, this is really yours, right? We're going to be shocked at the people with some of the largest things, because they're going to be people that no one else heard of. They're going to be people
Well,
that served other people that were waiters or that were janitors or that no one ever noticed. Your
oh,
life matters, and God has placed you where he wants you to be because you're a part of this whole big piece called the human puzzle, called the world. And God needs us to be us.
there's no one like us because again, it's our
Yeah.
gifts, our personality, what we look at, all of that mixed together, the situation, the circumstance that he put us in to learn from, to experience.
Even our
And
weaknesses fit in that whole mix too.
yes, just accept what you're strong in and forget about, just acknowledge that those are your weaknesses and know it, because it's helpful to know what your weaknesses are.
Right.
So God, that means I need to trust you in all those other things in those weaknesses. And again, why God doesn't need us, but he wants us. He created us for a reason because he wanted us. And hence
Yeah.
why we need other people.
Yeah.
It's about relationship. It's about
Yeah.
being connected. That's what real life is.
What times are more exciting for you? The times when you had it all figured out, or the times you had no clue what you were doing? When you have memories, which are the greater memories? Which were more
When
exciting?
when his presence was apparent. And it wasn't even necessarily big things, it's been a lot of small things.
For me, there were times when I knew what I was doing, and there's times I had no clue. But the times God showed up the biggest and the times that I enjoy the most now were the times I have no idea what I was doing. When I knew what I was doing, I could just do it on my own strength and power and just go, I got this, God. I'll let you know when I'm in trouble. But when I didn't know, I had to rely on him a lot more. And therefore, that's when the presence of God would show up, because I would ask him for that. And I also want to add, you said this earlier too, that, I used to think that God's saying, trust me. It can be seen as God's being mean. He just wants me to trust him. But, when you had your kids, how many times are your kids scared of something? They're afraid of something and they were mortified, and you knew it was going to be okay. Right. But they didn't. Or the first time they saw blood on a scrape they got, and they're coming up to you, just a little kid, and they're crying. And what is, mom, you'll take care of it. Mom, you'll kiss it. I need you to trust me. And they're just, but that's the first time they've seen blood on their own body, but it's going to be okay. They don't. Why are you saying trust me? You're not saying trust me because you're being a mean parent, because you're saying until you learn to trust me, I can't help you. No, you're just saying, listen, I don't want you to have to struggle anymore. I want you to know this is going to be okay. I need you to trust mommy. And when God comes and says, I need you to trust me, he's not just going, that's how it is. You got to have faith or this isn't going to work. I need you to no, what he's saying is, I see your struggle. I see your pain and I hurt with you, but I've got this thing covered. You don't need to add anything more to this pain anymore. You don't need to add any anxiety. Don't need to add any anger. I got you. I want you to trust me. In other words, he's saying, let me worry about it so I can remove that worry from you.
Yes,
And
what an excellent point. My dog decided to join us here. Um,
nice. I'm surprised my cat hasn't jumped on my lap yet.
but yes, such an excellent point. I love those analogies. I wish I could think of those analogies better, but I just don't. My brain does not think that way. But as soon as
Well,
you
that's,
said
we're
that,
made different, right?
right, as a parent and seeing that again, how we are with our kids, right? When we're responding in love, and he is always who is love, who created love. He's always responding in love, but in truth, in mercy, in grace, in justice. I mean, everything. He is all of those things all of the time. And so I love that you pointed that out, that it's not because he's want to see how far he can push us or because he's mean. He wants us to live this best life, this journey
Yeah.
with him.
Yeah,
And
he
yes,
does. He
there's
wants to be
struggle.
empowered and
And,
equipped.
and and then, but yet to remember that it's not the end, because there will come a time that there will not be struggle anymore. There will be no more crying. There will be no more. That is the extra thing that we get to hold on to, that it's not just today. It's not just surviving. It's just not making it another day and
Bigger
hoping,
picture. Yep.
waiting, but
Yep.
really trusting and believing who he is and what he says is going to happen. And that is the best thing, and knowing who he really is. And then just like you said with your friends, if you don't understand, those who are listening, you don't understand, well, how do you trust him? I don't get that. It's just like you said with your friends, you give them a little bit of something that you're struggling with and say, God,
Good.
you're real. I need you to do something with this. Show me that you're real. And then you get to trust him. And then as you walk through this journey of struggles, of frustration, talk to him, yell at him, cry to him, whatever it is, and see how he shows up. He will meet you the way you need to be met, not the way Steve needs to be met,
Yeah.
not the way Krista needs to be met. He
Yeah.
will meet you and show
Yeah.
you who
Yeah.
he is.
Yes. In the
And
same way, when your kids are struggling, you handle each of them differently.
right.
You know what each one needs because you're their mom, you're their parent, you love them, you watch them when they sleep. You know what they're going to be afraid of before they even get afraid of it. And you try to help them through that whole thing because that's what parents do. That's what God does. He didn't create us to be mean to us. He created us because he's got a plan for us. And he wants to use us to make our world, a better place. And when we hurt, he hurts. That's the thing we got to remember. When we struggle, he struggles. I just want to read the lyrics of this song real quick. I just felt like I needed it. This came to me and I just want to read them. It's called When God Ran by a guy by the name, I think Benny Hester was the first one to sing it. But check this out. It says, Almighty God, the great I am, talking about God here, immovable rock, omnipotent, powerful, awesome Lord, victorious warrior, commanding King of kings, mighty conqueror. So all these things talking about God, right? Oh, then listen to what he says. And the only time I ever saw him run was when he ran to me. And he took me in his arms and he held my head to his chest and said, my sons, come home again. Lifted my face, wiped the tears from my eyes. With forgiveness in his voice, he said, son, do you know I still love you? He caught me by surprise when God ran. And when we struggle, God does too. God knows he is familiar with sorrow and acquainted with grief. He wants to struggle with us. He wants to hold us. There's something that happens in struggle that happens nowhere else. There's something that happens inside of us with struggle that happens no way else. And so, Crystal.
And I do thank you for sharing your wisdom and your authentic, real journey and struggles with us today on Life Empowered. And I did want to add one more thing before I close out is that God really is the ultimate empowerer. So through all this struggle, he wants to empower us. He wants us to grow.
Yep.
He wants to pour into us. So empowering comes from God. And will you choose to let him, or will you fight him? Will you ignore him? Will you choose to do it your way? I've done that. And it's not so good, and it is pretty lonely, but with him, life is still hard, but it also is so much more beautiful,
Oh,
so much
great.
more
Yeah.
peace, so much more joy, so much more hope. And so really this Life Empowered podcast is about how I can share stories. And ultimately, Jesus is the bomb, but he works through us, and we can learn from history. We can learn from others. And I want you to learn from others so that you can choose to go forward, choose to take that next step and be strong and courageous for whatever is ahead. So
And
thank you
and
so
you're
much.
so right too. And you're so right. You covered it so well when you talked about life is hard, but it's also happy. And it's also, when you look at mental hospitals, when a person, their anxiety is so great that they need to calm their anxiety down, they give them medication. And we don't want the struggle. We want the happy. We don't want the anxiety. We want the peace, right? But they're all emotions and they're all good things. Emotions are important. They're trying to tell us something, right? But when you numb one emotion, you numb them all.
Right.
So when you numb and just take the anxiety away, guess what? The happy goes away too,
Mhm.
right? There's a balance there. And so when we want to take away the hate, the love goes away. And we just want to numb the negative emotions and keep the positive emotions alive, but they go hand in hand. And it's okay to have negative emotions. It's okay. It's what we do with those emotions that's important. And God will help us through all that.
Well, and if someone's watching this video, they might see that behind you, it says happy life. So they might be a little
Yeah.
confused, like, well, this guy must be all about happy. But so
Yeah.
tell us about this podcast that you have that we can share in podcast notes as well.
All you have to do is search Happy Life Studios. If you just go online and search Happy Life Studios, you're going to find us. You're going to find the social media we have, whatever podcast platform you listen to. If you search Happy Life Studios, you're going to find us. It's got that little face back there, the green face. And that happy face, you notice most happy faces came out in like 1970 or something with Have a Good Day, and it was yellow and it had a smile. But that one's a little different. It's green, right? Because what does yellow mean? When you're a kid, you learn 3 colors: red, green, yellow, right? What does yellow mean? Yellow means caution. What does green mean? Green means go, right? And that green is like an electric green. The happy that God wants to give us is happy more abundantly. Psalms 105 verse 3, in the very middle of the Bible, it says, "You who seek God, live a happy life." Exclamation point. Jesus said, "I have come to give you life and life to the fullest. I have come to give you a happy life." This is coming from the guy who was acquainted with grief and familiar with sorrow. And yet he's saying, "I have come that I would give you happy." So if you search Happy Life Studios, I'm a happypreneur. You can see it on my shirt there. I'm a happypreneur. I'm here to creatively, I'm here to navigate, activate, and advocate your happy. I'm here to help you find joy, find happy. Then I'm here to help you turn it on. Then I'm here to walk alongside you. So we've got life coaching that we do. We've got podcasts that we do. Because I just feel like if Paul the Apostle, who wrote the majority of the New Testament, wrote a lot of it anyway, more than any other guy in the New Testament, if he were alive today and he heard about this World Wide Web, he would be like, "What? The World Wide what? Can I change the world with a?" And so I'm like, listen, there's a web out there and nobody controls what I can say or cannot say. I mean, I can just tell people about God all day long on there. And then God can bring anybody from anywhere around the world to that thing to say, "Hey, listen, you are valuable. Listen to this." And it's such all I have to do is just put it out. So that's what we do. And that's what Happy Life Studios is all about, because everybody wants to be happy, but they think to get happy the yellow face way, the yellow smiley face is, I got to get rid of my negative and increase the positive, then I'll be happy. But then my happy is based upon circumstances, which never back us up, which are never on our side, right? They never cooperate. I should put it that way, right?
Yeah.
But when God says, "I want to give you happy that goes deeper than circumstances. I want to give you happy that," even though the Christians that were being fed to the lions, right? They had this joy. They had this, "I want to give you a happy that when you're in your struggle, you can still hold on to hope. You can still hold on to happy. You can still, like you said, that peace that goes beyond understanding." And that's what God wants to give. And that's really what we're trying to help people with. And there's a lot of believers out there that say they believe in God, and yet their online posts, their attitude is just, it's so negative. And we're cursing the darkness. We're getting mad at people and we're getting mad at, you can curse the darkness or you can just turn on the light. And that's what we can talk about how bad things are, or I can just increase the happy presence. We can talk about the struggle, or we can just increase the faith. And I just want to flip the switch and turn on the light. And that's what happy life really is all about.
Well, super. Well, thank you again for joining us. Have an awesome day.
My honor. Thank you, Krista.